A show of unity from the leaders of China and Russia as tensions rise with the West. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have met virtually days after facing criticism from the G7 over China's crackdown in Xinjiang and Russia's troop buildup near Ukraine. Mr. Putin called the Chinese leader his dear friend. He said ties between Beijing and Moscow are a proper example of interstate cooperation in the 21st century. Both leaders have agreed to meet at the Beijing Winter Olympics in February.
Рассчитываю, что в феврале следующего года наконец-то сможем встретиться и лично в Пекине. Как мы и договаривались, как условились, мы с вами проведем переговоры, а затем поучаствуем в церемонии открытия зимних Олимпийских игр. Признателен вам за приглашение посетить это знаковое мероприятие.
Olivia Song is live in Beijing for more on this story. Olivia, what message are both sides trying to send with this show of unity?
Well, the message was clear in this meeting that lasted for just over an hour. Both sides very keen to hail the strong bilateral relationship amid the mounting pressure that both countries see from the West, in particular from US and Europe. So this really seemed to be a message to the Western countries that there is unity between China and Russia. Mr. Putin describing the bilateral relationship as a model of cooperation in the 21st century. And Mr. Xi, on his part, called Mr. Putin an old friend, saying that this is their second virtual meeting this year and that they have met 37 times now since 2013, adding that he appreciated Mr. Putin's support in defending China's national interests and opposing attempts to drive a wedge between the two countries. Now, we do have to remember that there had been no explicit mention of the U.S. or other countries, but this was clearly a reference to this, as both leaders also have met U.S. President Joe Biden virtually over the past month. This also as the U.S. has raised concerns for China. It has raised issues with alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang, suppression in Hong Kong, as well as Beijing's increased military activity in the Taiwan Strait. And for Russia, there is concern that it may choose to invade Ukraine. But it's not just rhetoric here. In practical terms, China and Russia are also talking about deepening cooperation in several areas, whether it comes to trade or in the Belt and Road Initiative or in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have also earlier had seen talk about greater cooperation on the military front as well.
At the same time, Olivia, Beijing has received some strong support from participating countries for the upcoming Winter Games, and that's, of course, after months of criticism from others.
Yeah, that's right. There's support from Russia likely to be seen as a win for China, especially as we have seen that Mr. Putin has accepted the invitation to attend the opening ceremony at the Winter Olympics. And as far as we know, he is the only world leader so far to say that he will be attending the Games in person. And he could also very well be the first world leader that President Xi will be meeting face-to-face in person since this COVID-19 pandemic began in 2019. Now, Chinese state media has reported that the Russian president said that he looks forward to being in attendance and meeting his Chinese counterpart in person. Mr. Xi also expressing the same, adding that China is willing to work together towards a future that opens, quote, a new chapter in Sino-Russian relations in the post-pandemic period. And this comes amid a diplomatic boycott led by the U.S. We have seen other countries like the United Kingdom, Australia and Canada say that they will not be sending government officials to the Winter Olympics, citing human rights concerns in China, something that Beijing has denied. But Mr. Putin's support also comes as China has seen the U.S. as trying to rally support among its allies to counter China's rise. Remember that both China and Russia had been left out of that democracy summit held by the U.S. and something that Russia and China had hit back at strongly. And we see President Xi in his comments, perhaps another veiled swipe at the U.S. saying that China and Russia have demonstrated their responsibility as major countries and that they have elaborated on the correct version of democracy and human rights and become pillars of multilateralism.
Olivia, thank you. Olivia Xiong there in Beijing.